Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and download the full podcast to your smartphone. There's a link in the description below. I've heard this term called pantser.
Pantser and plants.
Are
Yeah.
you a pantser, or do you outline, or is there somewhere in between?
Yeah, so the two they say you're either plotter or pantser. So you write by the seat of your pants or you plot everything out. And I'm a plantser because I kind of do both.
So there
I
is an
like
in between.
I think there is because I think probably a lot of authors fall into this category actually. I like to have a general idea or structure, an outline of I know these where the beats are. These are the plot beats and what needs to happen here, and somewhere in the middle, this kind of needs to happen, and this is kind of how it's going to end. But then I like to take the journey with my characters. And have it be flexible because sometimes they surprise you. Sometimes you get to a point in a book and you think this was going to happen, and then you think, they wouldn't say that at this part of the book. They wouldn't do that. They've changed, they've grown. And so it's a little different. They sometimes dictate what happens.
Mhm.
So I like to have the flexibility of allowing my characters to live and breathe a little bit
Yeah.
within the loose parameters. I think that that happens to everybody that does this kind of creative work where you kind of hit a wall. Sometimes they call it writer's block or something where you think, okay, I've painted myself in a corner. And sometimes it does mean you need to dismantle and start over, which is painful and awful. But a lot of times, yeah, it's like you don't want to do that. It's like I put all this time, but sometimes it's what will serve the story best. Like, absolutely. You like knock down the structure you had, but keep the bits that have meaning and then use that, then restructure that meaning in a way that is a better story and is more deliverable to your audience. I would say what helps me is feedback. It's so important. It's kind of a solitary endeavor to be a writer. You're alone in your room a lot, just typing and thinking and typing and thinking. So it really helps to have good, trusted friends that you can say, "Will you please read this and give me some feedback and tell me what's good about it, what isn't, what took you out of the story, what's hooking you into the story." Um, because sometimes they'll have insights that because you're in the fog of it, that you're not going to have unless you take a big break. Sometimes taking a break does it too. But because then it's almost like you are a different person reading it. I've had that experience where I came back to a novel I wrote a few years ago and I'm like, wow, this is pretty good. And then, this part doesn't know, you know what I mean? But it was almost like with fresh eyes. I didn't recognize it as my own almost. So I would say either take a break or make sure you have good people that you trust their opinion and they're going to be honest with you, read your stuff and give you feedback. So you want to kind of immerse yourself with good art, whether it be film or books. And you want to have time each day to do a little bit of that. And then sometimes it's just the grind of sitting and like, okay, I don't feel inspired right now, but I know I need to have this many chapters written by the end of the week. So I'm just going to write. And there comes a point where you can kind of, it's going to be ugly writing for a minute and just kind of stilted. But if you push past that, you will hit the flow at some point. It's kind of like how people describe the runner's high at first, you're like, and then you hit that. I don't get that, by the way, with running. I don't understand it. But, that's the closest thing I know to compare it to is it'll feel like work. And then at some point, if you keep persisting, then you find yourself in the flow and then it'll get a little bit easier. And you just make a habit of that. And then it kind of trains your brain to be like, okay, this is the work part. And then this is the part that's fun, which is when you're in the flow and everything's coming to you. I think I would encourage most artists and authors and people like that to educate themselves a little bit on the business end, even though it's not exciting.
It's like the worst
It's the
part.
worst part, and it can suck all the joy out of everything that you do.
It really does. It really does.
But I think go in, but inform yourself, so it doesn't crush you. Inform yourself and then look it in the eyes and decide how you feel about it and then deal with that. You don't want to go in to any of these things, whether it be film industry or anything with stars in your eyes. Do not do that. Go in with your eyes open, realizing, hey, I want to do creative things. The business people are going to get in my way. Sometimes they're going to facilitate and sometimes they're going to wreck it. Whatever, take it as it comes. Are you committed to the process? Are you committed to being a creative person? Then you just kind of keep doing it and you find your way to get your stuff out there. lot, like you said, because I'm mentoring young people who are aspiring to be writers and get published and all of that. I tell them to educate themselves on how to do it well, um, because I think it's important that you hone a skill. You don't just throw spaghetti at the wall and expect the world to love it and think you're amazing and a genius. So actually learn the skills that it takes to be a good writer and practice, practice, practice. You're never going to like write a first draft and get it picked up by a publisher. So learn to, like, I think it was Stephen King that said kill your darlings. Like, you take out the things that, oh, I'm so in love with that phrase or that sentence or that whole passage, but it slows down the plot and it kind of takes away from the main point. You learn to eliminate the things that are self-indulgent to a point to serve the story. um, so learn your skills. Um, be as honest as you can. Don't try to mimic someone else unless you're doing a parody. Don't try to limit, you want to make sure that you're saying things that are true to you, and make sense to you, because it'll come across in the writing. It'll be more powerful if you believe what you're saying. Even if it's fantasy, you have to believe what you're saying. Um, so I think that would be a couple of the things that I would say, and the whole just be resilient. If you're really serious about this, then don't take it personally when people are like, "This sucks. This is not great. You need to try again." Then just say, "Okay, I will," and keep trying.